Greetings, everybody. This is a second in one podcast production. This is going to be another podcast, kind of on the side of what we already do. Which, if you follow Second in One, we do sports on a weekly basis. But we found that after the Super Bowl and after football kind of dies down, that we have a lap in sports news, sports coverage, because all you really have is football. I mean, not football. I'm sorry. You have baseball, hockey, and basketball. So we're going to try to supplement that with something that's a little bit more beneficial to society, the masses, right? So the name of this podcast is going to be "Health is Wealth." Right? We always hear that phrase. So we're going to break it down into kind of three segments. It's going to be physical health, mental health, and spiritual health. Today, we're going to talk about the mental aspect of it, and we're going to really dive into social media and effects that social media have on people's mental health. So, if you know me from the last podcast, my name is Tahim, and then I have with us here my brother Charles. Introduce yourself.
Hey, good evening, guys. He said it best. My name is Charles, but you may know me as Mr. Ransom.
Good evening, guys. So,
Yeah,
me and Charles go back a long, long way. Like, so if I ever say my brother, this is who I'm talking about. He is
absolutely.
biracial, but if you look at him, he definitely looks white. He does not look black at all, but he is definitely biracial. Um, I met Charles when I was like what 15, 16, or something like that.
Somewhere around there. Yeah,
Yeah,
like for freshman year of high school.
yeah.
Yep,
And the
yep,
crazy thing about it is like we knew each other in school, but for a long time we didn't realize we lived across the street from each other.
yeah.
Because I had just moved to Long Branch, and we didn't realize like I can literally lift my bedroom window up and yell at Charles for where he was at, and we did not know that for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And then we became real good friends. His family was very inviting and of me, same with my family of him.
Mhm.
And basically we just grew up together. His dad had a very big impact on my life. Is probably one of the main reasons I am who I am today. My successes and some of my failures as well.
That's
Um,
yep.
So we're going to kick this off, like I said, with social media. So when Charles, when you think of social media, um, what do you think social media is?
I think that the definition of social media has lost the. It's not what the dictionary definition of social media is not what it is today. So what I think social media is something for our entertainment, something for our leisure, if you
Yeah,
will.
leisure.
But that would be the dictionary definition of it. But the reality of the situation is it's grown into something far more far-reaching and far worse. What do you think? What's your definition of that?
Yeah, man, I would say the same thing. I think when social media was first created, it was kind of just like that piece for people to stay connected, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm
Yep.
doing this. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like the supplement a text or a phone call.
Yeah.
But like as you said, man, it's grown into this huge like monster, this blob that just keeps. It's like an avalanche, right?
Yeah.
It starts small and it keeps coming. It's going to hit you full speed.
It's yep. Yep.
There's so many things that people do on social media now. Like, so what are some of the things you think about when you think how people use social media nowadays?
I definitely think that it has become a monster, kind of like Frankenstein. It's something that was a good idea in
Hmm.
theory, and sometimes the reaction, the reality of your creation goes left. And I think it was, like you said, originally made for people to keep in touch. Like Facebook originally was for college students,
Yeah,
like
and then
for
'cause
networking.
yeah, I remember when it first opened up. I could only get on it because I was at Brookdale Community College, and I had
Same thing with me.
yeah, and I had the
Same
thing
thing with
because
me.
if you weren't in college, you couldn't be on it. Like
Yep.
you couldn't log on, and then they opened it up to everybody.
Yep, it was more of an exclusive thing, and I'm not to say exclusion or inclusion. It was just more of a community of like-minded
Minded people
individuals.
doing the same things at the
Yeah,
same times.
yeah, not even like-minded. Just you guys are in the same situation. You guys are college students. How about you guys communicate to, hey, let's share chapter 6. Like, what
Yeah,
obviously it didn't turn. It probably just turned into, where the party at, like. But like,
yeah,
but that was the theory behind it, and I think
yeah.
society is all about inclusion nowadays, and I think I did do a little bit of thinking about about this topic, and I think the inclusion, the inclusive nature of society, and the accepting nature of society has kind of made social media what it is, because people were saying, oh, why is it only for college students? Why is it only for these people? Let's have it for everybody. And the problem with it is everything ain't for everybody.
Yeah,
And
because
everything, everyone ain't for
everybody's not.
everything.
Yeah, because everybody's not ready for it. So,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
if we just stand back and we look at Facebook, when it first opened up, it was for college kids. You would assume and like to think that college kids have a certain amount of maturity, right? So they're going to enter
Yeah.
situations differently. But when you open it up to everybody, now you include different levels of maturity,
Yeah.
and that's when the situation starts to get kind of sticky, you know?
Absolutely. And again, it's Pandora's box, right? Like or when the people started, the developers said, let's make this for everybody. They were so worried about if they could do it, they should have been worried about if they should do it.
Correct.
I know plenty of people back then that were mature college students, and plenty of people that weren't. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
Like, yeah, like just like there's, I look at it like this. All right, well, everybody wants a Ferrari, right? But if we all had Ferraris, a lot of us would be, model drivers, and the other people would be wrapping it around a telephone pole before they got out of the parking lot.
Yep, they
So
wouldn't know how to drive it.
they wouldn't know how to drive it. So it's like in the right hands, certain things work very well, but in the wrong hands, or in the incapable hands, it goes completely off the rails, and that's why we have the problem with social media that we have today.
Yeah, 100%. So like we it's not only with Facebook. So now we have
Oh no,
different
that was the tip of the sword.
platforms. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's
like,
the tip of the iceberg. So now we have different platforms. So when we say about social media platforms, what other platforms come to mind?
I mean, now it's Instagram, right? And
Hmm.
and I feel like there's eras of things. It's almost like the dinosaurs, and then there was the Cro-Magnon man and the Neanderthal. Like now we're in the age of modern man, the upright man. Like there was Facebook, and then there was MySpace, and those kind of went by the way of the dinosaur. Like Facebook is pretty much it's outdated now, and I don't know many people that are on Facebook as
So people
before.
still people definitely still use Facebook.
Okay,
And I think Facebook is more of a issue than say Instagram,
okay.
because Instagram you're limited. You know,
Yeah.
Facebook you can go on there, you can wow out.
While out in the way of what? Like, give me an example. I just
Okay.
want to. I just want to know what you're like.
Okay.
Where are we
So
going?
so in the aspect of mental health, right?
Hmm.
On Facebook, you have the freedom to post a lot of different news articles,
Sure.
a lot of different things that might fall into your perspective, right? And
Yeah.
there's nothing barring you from posting that.
Okay.
So if you have friends or family members and stuff that don't quite see it your way, they'll still see these posts and they'll still see these articles that you post. So, they're kind of not wrapped into it, but now they're kind of looking at you this way, or they might post something that can essentially hurt your feelings, you know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
make you feel some type of way. So I think there's more freedom on Facebook to do things like that than there is on Instagram. Instagram, I just think it's a lot more pictures of people. Like we'll go into it later, but pushing almost a fake facade for some, not all, but for some.
Oh, sure. I mean, I kind of see what you're saying, but at the same time, you still can attach words to your picture. So I guess once on the one hand, Facebook is more text based, and then Instagram is more visual based, but
Yeah.
they both incorporate the other side just to a lesser degree. So it's almost like the flip side of a coin. You still get it, but it's less image on Facebook and less text on Instagram. But you still get the very
The
far
dark
left and far
side
right.
or the underbelly of social media. Yeah, 100%. They
Certainly, and I don't know. I would say that as a culture now, modern people, we're more visual people. Like
Yeah.
we're more, like what we're doing now. Like we're more visual. We're visually based. We need it quickly. We need our information quickly. So, Facebook is one thing. If I say something hurtful on Facebook, that's one thing. But if I put a hurtful picture up of someone, or I put an unrealistic photograph of an unattainable goal, or an unrealistic goal on Instagram, visually my brain processes that differently. Like, oh man, like I see it, and immediately it paints a picture in my head rather than, I mean, words can kill you quicker than a gun, but I just feel like we're in the minority of those people. The
Yeah.
majority of people are visually based now. So I feel like, if you read something, it's one thing. Like if I read something, it's different. But if the younger generation or a generation overall reads something, at least that's just my opinion. Like Instagram is one of those things. It's like you see something, and since our culture is so visually based, it's immediately like taken more seriously than words. Maybe,
Yeah, I can say that.
like
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Like the visual effect has more of an impact than just the words,
especially
because
with
a
younger
lot of times,
people.
yeah, because a lot of times people aren't reading the words; they're looking for phrases
Yeah,
or like titles that create a different narrative, and they're pinned on that. But on Instagram, you see the photo, you see the visual, possibly the beginning and the outcome. So people are drawn more to that, and that can be more destructive if used in a bad way. I can see that.
exactly. And it's not to say that you can still hurt people with words, because like I said, words can kill you quicker than a knife or a gun can. But
Yeah,
I just kind of look at, like me, I would be more hurt by words than by an image, because if if something is said about me, it's one thing. But if I see a picture of me like when I was a kid that's unflattering, I can just say, hey, I can contest that, like, hey, or maybe I look like that. Who know who knows and who really cares. But
yeah,
the words, like, again, we're in the minority, because I when I was younger, I really did pay a lot more attention to what people said about me. If it was true or untrue, it bothered me if it was untrue. Now I've kind of learned to differentiate between, okay, I mean, what source is this information coming from, and what does it say exactly, and how close to the mark is it? But sadly, Ty, we're in that minority of people. We think, I don't want to say on a higher plane, but on the normal plane, where should be the majority, but sadly we think like the minority. We do.
yeah, and I think some of it has to do with maturity, and maybe just experience in life.
Okay.
Knowing that, I look at things like, listen, they killed Jesus, so they're going to talk about us. They're going to talk about me. They're going to talk about you. They're going to do,
Yeah.
whatever they're
Yeah.
going to do. So
Yeah.
you can't let that affect you as much. You can still let it get your attention to
Hmm.
kind of see exactly what it is, because you don't
Sure.
want anybody just making up fabrications about you as well.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times you got to ignore that stuff. Like I think that's a big thing that we have to learn how to do on Facebook now too. Especially because of the past elections. Especially on Facebook and Twitter, because Twitter, man, that's just the wild, wild west. Twitter is the
Yeah.
wildest, like the
Yeah.
wildest place ever. People put whatever they want to up there. Like it's crazy. But yeah, you gotta look at things and kind of take them for what they are and not get too invested in them. And I think we have an issue in society now where somebody can post something and trigger a whole group of people.
Sure, sure. I mean, it's just like, I look at it like a Barack Obama. He probably got so much hate mail just as much as he got, letters of, accolades and letters of good cheer and good natured sayings. And I'd be brutally honest with I guarantee that he probably got mad a few times, but the majority of it, he was just like, come on. Like, people are going to say whatever they're going to say, as long as the right people know that I'm doing good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, as long as the right people know that I'm doing something good, or like I'm trying to help the people, like I could care less of what these million people are saying, because A, they're uninformed, or B, their opinion is biased,
yeah,
or both. And though that's the type of talk that you have to stay away from. If it's pre-biased, you have to immediately kind of say, okay, all right, as much as might get my blood pressure up, I'm not going to let it, because there's something behind this. Like, you might not like me for another reason, and this is feeding into that. And at that point, it's kind of one in, one out the other. But sadly, again, we're in the minority of those people, and I don't know where the generation changed, because people not too much younger than us and our age even act the same way, act that way. And I don't know where it started, and maybe it's because it didn't affect me. I don't know when it started, but if I had to guess, I would say once Instagram started and Twitter really started, and once the Facebook and MySpace kind of died off, I kind of feel like it got worse. It
yeah.
definitely got worse.
I think what a lot of people is it's that instant gratification they're looking for. So they might not necessarily post something that they believe in, but they'll post something that they know they can get a bunch of likes for, or they can trigger an audience or trigger a discussion, just to release those endorphins in their brains to get that sensation of
Mm.
they achieved something, because that's all what um, instant gratification is about. It's about the releasing of those endorphins into the brain. It looks, chemical reaction. People looking for that chemical reaction. Like people get addicted to drugs
Yeah.
to get that high. I think we have not I won't say a whole generation, but some people in a generation that do that.
You know what, man? I mean, I'm not blanking on everybody, but it is a whole generation, man. Because when I think about it, technology, the advancement of technology can help or hinder you depending on. Again, it's like I said, the whole Ferrari thing, or whole like if everybody had a gun, like I guarantee you, we'd all probably be dead because there's more people that don't know how to use a gun properly than do.
Hmm.
So, or they know how to drive a Ferrari way less than the people that don't know. So again, like as technology advanced, like when we were young, I had a two-way pager. Like that's archaic technology, but it didn't send pictures. It didn't like. Listen, there's always gossip and there's always negative things that are being said, but again, there was no forum for that.
Hmm.
There was no we couldn't go after. I mean, there was AIM. And Lord, I mean, I'm showing my age right now, but
Yeah.
there was AIM. But I mean,
Yeah.
like, and you know what? There was still a lot of nonsense that was
Yeah.
spoken on AIM. But again,
But
it just
it
wasn't
wasn't.
as big of a platform. It really
Yeah, it
wasn't.
wasn't like. And now that you say that, like you talk about AIM, like in high school, like that wasn't a discussion of topic. Like getting
No.
on AIM and see what was going on the internet. Like I can't imagine what's going on in high schools now,
Oh,
because you have so many platforms and so many other students on these platforms saying things and doing things. It's just like I wouldn't I wouldn't know how to navigate that in a high school. Like if in a high school setting right now, it would be too
dude,
much. It would be
dude, it
way too
was.
much.
But you know what? Maybe we're thinking of we're like it's like the Rip Van Winkle effect. Like we don't. We're thinking of the life that of a high school student in the early. We'll put it like this: when we were in high school,
Yeah.
rather than now. Like we can't visualize that and think that because we
We
didn't
weren't
grow up with technology. We
like
barely
that.
had it.
Yeah.
Like we had like Xbox. Like one of my earliest memories of our relationship is us playing Halo. You
Yeah.
know what
The
I mean?
first
Like
one.
the very first one, yeah, like the co-op version. Like, but there
Mhm.
was no like online. Like there was online, but it wasn't as popular as like just system linking your Xboxes and having 8 players or playing with somebody else physically. We
Yeah, because
hadn't gotten to that point yet.
I remember when we used to do that. We used to go over our good friend Joey Nunez's house
Oh
in his
God.
basement, and we used to set up two TVs like in two
Oh my
different
God,
rooms,
bro. Whew.
and they would be connected like going through the doorway. That's how we used to play
Yo,
these big games that people
yo.
play now. From sitting in their homes.
Those were great times, man.
Yeah.
Those
So
were
like
great
for
times.
us, like for us growing up, like that was our chat room. Like
Yeah,
that was it was like
yeah,
what 10 of us over there, in
yeah.
that basement, and we would spend the night, be over there the whole weekend, and we would play Halo. Like that was our social forum. That was our Facebook. That was our, you know what I mean? And now,
That's how we caught up on what's going down when we just got together and talked.
yeah, exactly. We be sitting there talking face to face, and
Yeah,
and I think when you talk sitting you face to face, it's harder at that point to misconstrue what a person is saying. It's harder to
absolutely.
misinterpret what a person is saying when you're sitting there face to face, and that's another thing that we fall into on social media. You have people talking to each other, trying to have full out blown conversations from
Via
Twitter to
via text.
Instagram to Facebook, exactly, and the attitude and the environment and everything else, the context of the conversation is getting lost.
100%, man. Like it's so I hate having certain type of conversations with people on through text. Like me and you had a situation not too long ago when I was like, what I'm going to say to you, it just I could say it through text, sure, but like it's just not going to be interpreted in the right way, and I know that. So there's no
Yeah.
substitution for old fashioned analog, not even like analog discussion. That's what I call it,
Mhm.
not digital. Like voice to voice, person to person. Like again, the generation under ours, they didn't come up like that. They came up artificial, like literally, they came up talking to each other online. So like, I'll tell you a quick side story. Like I never will forget it. I was out of state and I was in a restaurant and I looked across from me and there was two people. They were late teens, maybe very early 20s. They were clearly on a date, and I shit you not, they literally were on their phones the entire time
Mhm.
and barely looked up at each other. But and when I went to the bathroom, I suddenly realized, I was like, wait, I think they're texting each other or like sending
Oh
each
my
other like
god.
memes and like TikToks or like gifts to each other, like, and
Mm,
I was like, wait a minute, like this is how they're communicating. And the only time they really talked to each other was when like the food came, or like they took a couple of pictures with each other,
mm,
but to post on social media. And I was like, the person I literally said to myself, like, at least to myself, I was like, wow, like I'm talking like literally like they were head down on their phones,
mm-hmm.
like not speaking to each other, but
Yeah,
they were communicating with each other. And I was like, man, that's like somebody like that's not even their fault. That's just how they know how to communicate.
yeah. That's really wild, and that's like creepy almost. You
True
know.
story, man. True story.
I think we in this age we do get way too attached to our phones because everything is at our fingertips.
Yep.
One of
Yep.
my suggestions is we really got to limit the amount of time that we're on social media. But to the flip side of that, like we were saying, social media is used for so many things. Like people run businesses through social media, you
Yeah,
know.
they do. Yeah, they
So
do.
they kind of have to be on it, and excuse me, when they're on it, they kind of get the bleed over from the regular social media stuff. So
Yeah.
it's still there, even though they're handling business and stuff like that. Like so for me, like I always have my phone on. It's always up because of the position that I'm in. Like I have to be available at all times to take
Yeah.
calls,
Yeah.
text messages and things like that. But it's not like I have my phone and I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all these social media platforms, throughout the entire day.
Exactly. There has to be a cutoff point. A buddy, literally, I was talking to him last night, and he was having an argument with one of his really good friends because his friend was trying to have a heart to heart with him. And during the conversation, he literally picked up his phone and answered a couple of texts. He didn't mean anything by it, but he realized the error of his ways. The other guy got really upset, like, "Hey, man, like I'm talking to you,
Mm,
get off your phone." Like, and the other guy, he didn't really see anything wrong with it at first until like we kind of talked to him, like, "Hey, man, like I know it's second nature." To your point of being like, "Yo, we're so used to being on our phones,"
mm,
and I was just like, "Man, like you really didn't think anything was wrong at first, did you?" And he was like, "Nah, I really didn't. Like, it's not a big deal. It was just like a 5 minute argument." But to your point, we're so used to being on our phones that he now I wouldn't do that if we were having a very serious conversation. I'm not going to go on my phone. If we were
mhm.
just kind of like shooting the breeze, yeah, why not? But other than that, hey, listen, like we need I the phone isn't important at this point, but we are so ingrained to automatically go to our phone when we hear the beep or the vibration that he at first didn't think anything of it. And he just kept doing it, and the guy got really upset. So again, our generation, we kind of bridge the gap because when we grew up, we did not have technology, but we're still young in a technological world.
Hmm.
So it's easy for us to
Yeah.
assimilate the advancements. So it puts us in a weird situation that we could do better. The young generation, they got to learn. The old generation they're stuck in their ways.
Hmm.
We're the generation that can enact change and be the change. It's just a matter of kind of getting everybody out of the unplugging from the matrix. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So to touch on that point that you said, like, so I am a culprit of that. So if somebody's talking to me, I will look at my phone if I get a text. Now I don't always answer it, but I will look because, like I said, because of the job and the position I'm in, at first I got to make sure somebody's not dying or needs
But
my help.
those are mitigating circumstances,
And
though.
then so then like
Yeah.
if it's not a situation like that, I won't reply to the text. I'll put the phone to the side and continue the
Yeah.
conversation. But if the person that's texting me needs me right there, like I'll stop the conversation and say, "Hey, look, I gotta handle this." But I stop the conversation. Like I let the person know that I'm talking to, what's going on. Like, hey, I have to take this text because of
Mm.
such and such. So
Yes.
I gotta I gotta do that. But yeah, so that plays into another part of the like how it affects us mentally, right? So if we're having a discussion or argument and we're trying to come to a resolution, and then for the younger generation, social media gets in the way, right? Like they got to check their phones, they have to go, you know, check their emails or whatever like that when they're trying to have when somebody's trying to have a conversation with them. You know what I mean? Like that's one of those pitfalls that we're starting to see with social media, and there's other pitfalls that are larger and more of a detriment to people too. Like we have people that are committing suicide from things that they
Yeah.
see on social media, which is
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking. And I think it's just because there's really no regulations on social media.
Yeah, there's no. Well, there are. You can report things and you can block. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. And but
So
that's
now,
but that's
yeah.
only
So
that's only so. But that only goes so far because if you report somebody, but the damage is done. Like what you're like if somebody really is. And listen,
because it's
uh,
a reactive than a
exactly. It's
proactive.
it's not proactive. It's
Hmm.
react like the like yeah like you already have hurt this
It's
person
already been
deeply.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough because I'm a firm believer in mental health is a very very real thing.
Yeah.
I suffer from it. I see a therapist. I have seen a therapist in the past. I believe very strongly in it, and maybe not the aspect of like just a widespread therapy, but like you have to find someone that resonates with you. Because
Yeah.
I don't believe in just being like, oh, as long as you go to therapy, everything's gonna be fine. That doesn't. That's like a calculator. A calculator is
No,
only as good as what you're inputting into it.
yeah,
You have to
it's a
find the person to get that help to help you help yourself,
yeah,
because it all
it's
comes
a
back to you.
yeah, it's an ongoing thing. Like
Yeah.
I've been battling depression for like 10 years, and after talking to the person that I talked to, a lot of it comes from social media in a way. Like
Really.
you go on social media and you see the way people treat each other. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Yeah.
see how disrespectful people are to each other, how wild they are, and then like when somebody calls them out, they're just like, "Oh, this is social media. This is just for fun. Like, this is
Yeah. You
this is
see,
just what we do."
you
It's
can't
such
have it
a
both ways. You can't have it
exactly.
both ways.
It's such a nonchalant attitude when it comes to someone's feelings. When I've gotten to a point in my life now, like I'm literally trying to protect everyone I'm around, and I'm trying to protect them from everything. So that social media thing, it's like it upsets me, especially during the Trump. I have friends that support Trump, which is fine, and then I have friends that don't support Trump, and then it's like they're battling each other on Facebook.
You
And
know what? I don't want to cut you off, but I want to
Mhm.
say for the record, as long as I do have one friend that's a Trump supporter, no names necessary here, but we had a long conversation about it at the outset of this whole thing 5 years ago now, and I wanted to make sure because a lot of the things that Donald Trump stands for are things that if if you supported those aspects of his campaign and those aspects of his modus operandi, I can't associate myself with you because
Mhm.
it disrespects the very person that I am, not as a human being, but as a African American man in this country.
Mhm.
So if you find out that they like you just said, like you have friends that are Trump supporters and it's fine. Yeah, but it's fine as long as they support only maybe some financial aspects of it, which is what my one friend got behind. And I said, you know
Mhm.
what? Oh, okay. I was like, you know what? All right, as long as you're not supporting other things that he stands for, or excuse me, other things that he doesn't condemn, I
Yeah,
should say.
and
So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that.
yeah,
Like,
and not to not to get off topic because we're talking about social media,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think sometimes like when we have friends that were courteous to us and empathetic to us before this whole Trump thing was going on, and then when Trump gets into office, I think they're still the same people. I just think they don't understand racism. I don't think they understand. They don't see it and they don't get it, and they don't understand that Trump was a racist, like flat out.
Mm-hmm.
He was a racist, but I don't think they understand or they see that. You know what I mean? I think
Mm-hmm.
they see the almost like the niceties of it, like or they got or they were all caught up in the couple of times that Trump was seen out in public with black people. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
those couple of things that he did. I think they got caught up in that and said, "Oh, he can't be racist or he can't be a bigot because he's done these
Mm-hmm.
things." But as as being a biracial, and I mean your father being black, grandfather being black, a very influential person in the civil
Mm.
rights movement.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of great things that he did with Martin Luther Dr. King. You know what I mean? So from
Absolutely.
our perspective, we know a person can go out in public with a black person and still be racist.
Yes.
They can still do that.
It can they can and vice versa. A
Hmm.
black person can have white friends and be very racist towards white people.
Hmm.
This is what I always tell people when it comes to racism, being biracial. I'm qualified to say it because I've lived both sides of it. I can
Yeah.
say this wholeheartedly. I say this to black people. My like I don't condone talking down on white people because my mother literally, my mom, like
Yeah.
one of the literally the kindest, most spiritually devout person. Like she doesn't even curse. Like
Yeah.
she don't even like violent TV. Like this is a
Yeah.
woman, and not that's not to say that you can not like violent TV and be racist. She is the most she has biracial kids. She is the person that is most accepting that I ever met in my whole life, bar none. And but that being said, I always say this to someone who doesn't understand racism. Yes, there is plenty of black people that are racist towards white people, but it is not the same racism. It is not the same, and it will never be the same. And if you've never lived that life on the other side of the fence, so to speak, you will never understand it. And I believe let's go back to the Trump thing real quick and social media. Trump kind of awoke a sleeping giant in America, the latent racism in people. Okay, it made them vocal on social media about it. Think about it for like the last 10 years ago. You didn't hear about these people. Like you said, we knew these people. And I know some of the people that you're talking about. Like, we actually had a conversation about one of these people. And I was like, yeah, like, no, they didn't talk like that. But it was below the surface, like a shark fin. You know, you don't, or the tip of the iceberg. You don't see the large thing that's going to sink the ship. You just see the little top, and you're like, yeah, it's not that bad. But now that Donald Trump became the mouthpiece for all these racists in America, now they were emboldened to be on social media and say these terrible things, these really, really ignorant things. Literally, dictionary definition of the word, race, like ignorant things.
Yeah.
And the people that we knew, suddenly, they're like, oh, well, if the president can talk like that, then I'm going to talk like that, and I'm going to do 180. So those people, I kind of say to myself, man, like, I didn't see the warning signs, but they were there the whole time, and maybe we didn't look at it like that. You know what I'm saying? And now that we're older and we have social media accounts and we see them talk about these things, you're like, man, you were like that the whole time. Because racism isn't born, it's bred, it's taught. You and you can teach yourself. I'm not saying you're taught by your elders or your peers. You can teach yourself that. So they were either taught by their parents, they taught themselves. Yeah. And now that Donald Trump is in office, they're able to say, like, oh, you know, you thugs, you criminals. And it's like, dude, if you had said that back in the day, you might have got, ran out of town on a rail. You know what I mean? Like, you might have got, you know what I mean? But now you're emboldened to say those things.
Yeah.
And, Taheem, in reality, what do you think? Do you continue to be friends with those people now? Like, because social media, what if they say something hurtful, but you're black and they're white, and they're like, oh, it's social media, it's social media. How do you, I'm not fully black. How do you, as a fully black man, navigate that?
See, and that's, I'm glad you asked that question, because that delves into the issue of the mental health on social media.
Because what's real and what's not at that
exactly,
point.
Exactly.
And so like Pop used to say, are you talking out of both sides of your mouth?
Yeah. Yep. So it's like, so we had a president that was emboldened to say whatever he wanted to. That, like you said, that awoke a sleeping giant. Some people now think that they can do the same thing. They can just get on and say whatever they want. But I think they forget the connection that they have to some African Americans. Like the president, his connection to African Americans is not your connection to African Americans. So you have to also understand what you're saying and how you're saying it. So for me, like I said, the battle with depression, like I look at it like, yo, why do you hate me? And we were friends 2 months ago, or before he was in office.
Maybe not even hate. Maybe just you're saying all these things, but you're cognizant of the fact that you have African American friends, you have Spanish friends. How could you say these things now?
Exactly. Exactly. Like how can?
And why didn't you say these things when you were around us?
Yeah. So what? So I kind of. So was I just like your token black friend at that point? You know what I mean? Just a guy to have around.
Maybe.
And now that the president, the former president, who he was when he was who he was, you can go back to being with your peers, as in your racial peers, and you don't need a token black guy around anymore. You know what I mean? So like that floated around in my mind for a long time, and then being in the organization that I'm in, the same thing. It's like you hear people that you call your brothers in arms, right? And they have a connection to you because you're African, because I'm African American, and we serve and wear the same uniform, and have the United States embroidered across our chest. And then it's kind of like you say things, or you side with a man that does not like me,
and doesn't like me? And doesn't value
who I am. As a
behind
person,
the scenes, you're secondary citizens. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, like being a black man in the military, like especially the last 4 years, like it's got to be a minefield. It's got to be a minefield. No pun intended.
Yeah, it's mentally draining because
Yeah, yeah, I can
at some
imagine.
point you have to I have to go in certain situations and say, "Hey, I know you don't like me," because of your full support for the former president and what he supports. But at the same time, I can't treat you any differently because of who I am, because the way that Pop raised me, because of the way my mom raised me. You know what I mean? I'm going to be respectful and professional in every sense of the word, and especially the duties behind my rank.
Yeah,
I'm definitely going to be that. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to
sure,
always
absolutely.
get. So you're always going to get the professional side of me, but there's always a battle inside of me because I know I am not liked. I know I am a second class citizen. Like I know the starting line for me is set 300 yards behind the actual starting line for you.
Absolutely,
You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? Like
Yeah.
I think because people go on Facebook and they feel like they have anonymity on there. Like they can go and say whatever they want. Nobody's going to see it. They're
Yeah,
free to say it. You know, and like I said, these things don't come from the people that I work with on a daily basis, but it comes from people that wear the same uniform I wear.
it's got to be. Once again, I just like you can't comment on being white and black and what the struggle is for that. I can't comment on being a black man and in the military during a pretty much a white supremacist sympathizers or white supremacist pacifists. I hate to say reign or regime, but yeah, it kind of was. It kind of was.
Yeah.
Hearing you talk about that makes me sad because Jordan, my brother-in-law, our brother-in-law is
Hmm.
very. He's Spanish in the military, and he's kind of said the same thing as you. Like he's had so many awkward conversations. Like, all right, so we're supposed to be brothers in arms, but then you said that. You're
Yeah.
talking about you're talking about like Black Lives Matter is a terroristic organization, like, but like in all caps with like 5 exclamation points, like
Hmm.
that's that's an issue here. Like
Yeah.
it's an obvious issue, because and you're not saying it because you know that. You're saying it because someone who has the IQ of that flag that like not even like literally of a coffee cup
Hmm. Yeah.
said so. And you know what? This is a good segue. Never before in this country has a president been so active on social media. And I've always wondered why that is. And it is because maybe it's because it's the modern day. But I also thought this, just like you can say something, like you said, like we don't read through things. We look for the hot, like a sentence or a quote. Think about how I'm glad you said that. Think about how Trump used to text. Sent like not even like it's not even stream of consciousness, like a paragraph, but it'd be like 4 different sentences. Like
Yeah.
they're talking about defunding the police. So these are terrorists. We need to protect our like it was almost like 4 messages in a paragraph,
Hmm.
because we as a culture we would immediately be like, oh look at that, it is right.
Yeah.
If you say defund the police, you're a terrorist or you're un-American.
Hmm.
Again, we never had a president that tweeted and would say idiotic things on so most of the time untrue things on social media. Like
Yeah, because
again, but
I think we had presidents. Well, the only presidents that were really in that age was Bush in his later years, which
and
I
then
think
then
I think
Obama.
yeah, and I think Bush was just so tired because he was dealing with the war at that point. Like he didn't have time for any of that. And
Yeah,
then you had Obama, who is I think a scholar and a gentleman in all sense of the
absolutely. Yeah,
words. Like he is just emotionally conscious of what's going on. So I don't. He would never ever go on social media and put things like that. And I think
yeah.
just
Come
Trump,
on.
yeah, I think Trump wasn't. He was doing it to trigger. He was using Twitter as a weapon.
No, he was using Twitter as and he also knew his base.
Yeah.
And he knew his base, and I'm not giving him credit. He wasn't smart enough to realize that. His staff realized that and said,
Hmm.
"Hey, this is how we're gonna stir the pot. Get on there in the morning." And he didn't write half of that. 99% of that stuff. His team wrote that stuff, and he signed off on it and said, "Yeah, as long as it doesn't say these 4 or 5 things that the Democrats can use against me, then click send." Like
Yeah.
I don't care as long as it doesn't say 1 or 2 things. Like as long as I didn't say I like David Duke, he's a fine gentleman. Like as long as it didn't say that, they could type whatever they wanted, and the people just ate it up,
Yeah.
and he fed that beast that is the underlying racism in this country. Like he preached hate on social media.
Hmm.
Again, like this is the president of the United States we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Like it's not like me or you saying something. It's literally you're supposed to be the example. The president is supposed to set an example, not be I'm not saying he's a common man, but the president isn't a common man. There's only one president. There's not a million presidents. There's one. So
Yeah.
you're not an uncommon man. You were a common man doing a very uncommon job.
Yeah.
And you're held to a much higher standard. So, like I said, and I think it's like you said, like Bush and Obama, because they were in a technological age. That's part of it, but still, that's no excuse for doing what he did.
Oh
and
no,
saying
no,
what he did
no,
on
no
social
substance,
media.
yeah.
And sadly, we're in that minority of people again, and not minority of race, minority of like-minded individuals that are kind of like. I looked at his tweets as comedy.
Yeah, it was just like you can't be serious. Like
Yeah.
he would tweet stuff like you can't be serious, man.
Like,
And you know,
yeah,
some people would fall right in line to it, like
oh
fall
my
in line
God,
with it,
yeah.
like they would love it, they would eat it up. But like you said before, like checks and balances, there has to be some type of somewhere, some directive, some in my world of line of work as AFIs, like that tell you what you can and can't write on social media. And for the military, I think they do a good job of writing AFIs, letting people know what they can and can't write, or can, yeah, that they can and can't write. But sometimes they still write them. You know what I mean?
It's
Sometimes
tough.
it bleeds through and for the whole world to see, or even if it's not that, or even if it's people that call themselves patriots or retired military veterans, like they send shots across the bow, man. They and it's
Yeah,
and it's like I said, it's hurtful. Like I deal that was one of my issues when I dealt with depression. Like it affected me because it's like I said, we wear the same uniform, and to some degree, some way, you don't like me, like you dislike me, like I don't get it because I don't dislike anybody. I don't.
sure, sure.
In my mind, it just doesn't resonate. That like I dislike people for like a quick second if they don't rack the weights right. Like I hate that, but
That's everyday stuff, though. It's like
exactly
you
like
get
I
over
don't.
it.
Yeah, I don't look at somebody and say, "Hey, you're Caucasian, so I don't like you."
Sadly, again, like you dislike the person's actions, not the person themselves,
Yeah,
because
so,
like
and
we
then
deal
and
with
then
being judged.
yeah, and then like if you just hate the person's actions, then it's just that person. It's not the entire
No, no, yeah, yeah.
but
It's
for African Americans, like we're lumped into a sum. Like they hate when
sadly,
they if they see some African American in Chicago that they don't like, they lump me into that sum.
it's it,
I'm a part of that.
yeah, and that's the problem. And being, you kind of like what you said about certain people being Trump supporters and being a little kind of not racist, but a little saying certain things and acting certain ways. I always think about a great comedian said, like, everybody wants to be black till the cops come.
Yeah,
Everybody wants to be like, and that was he was saying it in a roundabout way, saying everybody wants to be cool or down with something until it could be negative for you. Being white and black, like I had such a hard time dealing with, like, your depression was about one thing. My depression, not, I mean, depression
yeah,
about numerous
just
things,
just
but
yeah, just one of the things.
but in this particular topic, it was like, sometimes I always felt like, I was too black for the white kids and too white for the black kids. And thankfully, my mother, not my father, my mother was more the guiding factor in that. Like, Pop always preached pro-black, strong black, but and he wasn't anti-white. He obviously wasn't.
He definitely
But
was.
yeah, he definitely wasn't. But like, he was more like pro-black,
Yeah,
strictly pro-black, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just being honest, but I do understand why he was like that, because it's so easy for a biracial kid to lose his knowledge of his true self.
and I was going to
It,
say
it,
that
it
I
could be
think
very easy for a kid to do that, because I went to private school. I went to Montessori school when I was a kid, and I saw the other black kids, the other Filipino kids, the other Spanish kids kind of assimilate themselves. And I'm not saying acting black and acting white. I'm not saying that. I'm saying knowledge of self, because I don't want to say like, oh, you act white or you talk white, because that's happened to me before, and I think that that's absolutely ridiculous, and I think that's lowbrow to say. Knowledge of self. Knowledge of self, and you're an African American, you're a Spanish person, you're a Latino, you're a Filipino. You need knowledge of self. You need your history, your culture. You need to be yourself. Don't be what everybody else is. Be yourself.
yeah, I think
Don't be somebody else because you're afraid of being yourself. And that's what Pop preached. Always know that you're a black man first. And because he came up in that era where he led like the student marches, the civil rights marches from Brookdale to Monmouth University. He did the anti-war against black injustice at Long Branch High School in 1970. Like he came from that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he wanted to instill that in Dinah and I when we were very, very young. And it could come off as pro-black now, looking back on that. But all he was doing was making sure that we didn't lose that. Now, in Pop's way, was he a little bit, over the top with it?
Oh
Absolutely.
hell yeah, he was.
But that's just how he was. But my mother was the one that was like, listen, I want you to judge people by who they are, not by their skin, because you're gonna get judged. And I was, and I still am to this day. Just like, you are first, like because of you're a big buff dude with tattoos. They're not going to see that you're a decorated airman. They're not
Yeah.
going to see that. They could care less about.
They don't care about that.
The wrong person, should I say? Maybe I should say
So-
that. The
so
wrong
I-
person
I-
is going to see that.
So I tell you a story, and I think I told the story on Facebook. I was driving. I was coming to Long Branch probably to see my mom. Right, I was coming, and I was coming right from the gym. So I didn't have my hoodie on. I just had my cutoff shirt on, and I was driving down 295, and I think I was going like 5 miles over the speed limit. Right, so a cop pulls out. I'm like, all right, I know he's gonna bang his lights, and so I'm about to get pulled over. Cool. He pulls me over. Right. He comes to the passenger side of the window, asks for my license and identification, and I keep my military ID on top of everything because I use that the most to get in and
Absolutely.
out of base to check my things or whatever like that.
Mhm.
So he sees it. He says, "Oh, you're in the military," and I say, "Yeah, I'm active duty." He said, "Okay, cool, cool, cool." So then he walks back and he comes back. Says, "All right, man, I'm just gonna give you warning, man, and I'm so happy you're in the military because if not, I didn't want to have to grab you and pull you out of the car." And I was just thinking
What?
to myself, that would have been the day I died because
Yeah,
I wasn't going to
absolutely.
let you pull me out of this car. You would have had to shoot me 55 million times because
Which
you were
probably,
not-
which sadly
would-
probably would have done.
yeah, he would have had no problem doing that because
Yeah,
he
well,
was not
that's-
going to
not-
pull me out of a car.
Yes, not because all cops do that. It's
No,
because
not
what
all
he
cops
said
do
to
that.
you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's because
like,
what he said to you. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Like
That was, man, like that is
and I think Caucasians that are now I don't want to say supportive to make it sound like weird, but I think Caucasians that don't know, they don't know. Like those are the things that happens to people on a daily basis. You know what I'm saying? Like those are the
Sure.
things that happen to me on a daily basis. Like if you know who I am and what I do for a living, like the last thing I'm going to be doing is driving down the highway with 4 keys in the trunk or
Yeah, exactly.
illegal guns in the stash box. Like that's the last thing I'm going to do.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So and it was that cop and just being, and the cop was white, just being, you know what I'm saying? But like
Yeah,
those
no,
are the things that we have to live with.
That's terrible, man. And well, the flip side of that is all black people think that all white cops would say that, or all white people think of you like that. And so the flip side of that is no, not
No.
every white person is like that. Not every white person is good. Again, there is prejudice and racism towards whites, and it is very prevalent in certain areas. But it is not the same. It's two different things.
Yeah.
I think. Again, going back to social media, I will absolutely say that Donald Trump was a direct, like the rise of online bullying and the rise in online violence was directly
Correlated to him.
I don't have the numbers, but if we really delved into it, I could show you a direct correlation between the year 2016 and an exponential rise in that. And I definitely kind of want to go into another topic, but to put a bow on it, I really hope that the smart individuals in this country know the difference between, the people that believe in certain things that are said hateful on social media, especially politically, and the people that are just saying it, like you said, just to get followers. The person that's trying to get followers or get attention is more dangerous because at least the other
Yeah.
person believes in it, even if it's wrong.
Yeah,
At least they believe
it.
in what they're saying
Yeah,
and they feel
yeah,
passionately about it. The other side, you don't know who you just affected by saying that. And
that's the thing.
women more than men, and I'm not saying that women are more emotional than men. I'm just saying because women, on a whole, are more preconceived with looks and the look of something than men are. And well, again, I'm not saying that men are like we're stronger. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying visually, if I see somebody with abs or somebody that's buff, I'm gonna be like, all right, man, I gotta get like that. If a lot of women see that, they immediately, for some reason, not all, but a lot of them, for some reason, kind of just they'll see something or hear something, and it's much more negative for some reason. And again, I'm not saying all. I'm just saying I deal with it. I know you deal with it. but if for some reason there's a difference, and I think that not 2016. I just think that that's in general. I just think it's in general, and I know I kind of want to go into that topic, but to do you have anything to close on, like the political aspect of how like this country has been kind of ripped apart on social media, or no?
Yeah, I think, so the concept of this one is like mental health. Like, so we got to
Yeah,
think about
yeah,
like, how do we get back to a healthy mental state when we just came from the state that we were just in? I
yeah,
think now more than ever, we really have to be more compassionate towards everybody that is around us. Like, we have to kind of think about it in steps. Like, who is the closest person to you? You have to ensure that whatever you're posting is not affecting them. And then you got to start thinking more and more and more and outside of the box, going further, 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 down the line. Because I think to myself,
yeah.
if I post this, will it hurt somebody? It might. If I don't post this, will I die? No. Okay, don't post it.
That's fair, but you know what? I'm only gonna play devil's. I agree with you, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Like that's a slippery slope because we don't want to become me and you. Like I talk with my friends all the time. It's like, oh man, I can't say that anymore, even though it's not even
Yeah.
that bad. We're joking around.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh, I can't say that. I would get arrested. It's like, it's we laugh because it's funny, but we also laugh because it's partially true. It's like we don't want to go too far, so you can't even say like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I hate this, and it's like you said you hate Starbucks. You're racist against you're against coffee.
Yeah.
Like it's such a slippery
And I
slope.
think,
Like
and I,
we
and I
gotta
think,
watch what we post, but we can't get so sensitive. Like because again, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Sounds good in theory, but certain things can hurt you. It's such a slippery slope between what can and like what you should let roll off your back and what you should take seriously.
yeah.
It's such a slippery slope, and
So
that's where the problem lies.
So for me, personally, I understand exactly what you're saying because I think a lot of people in the country feel like that. They don't want too much censorship, right? They don't
Exactly, and
want
I don't think we should have too much censorship.
they don't want people telling them what they can and can't do, especially if it was okay to do 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Like it
Yeah.
was cool 5 years ago. Why can't I do it now? But I look at it like society with the advent of social media, since we see everything, we've become hypersensitive, right? We become sensitive to everything that's being posted. And we have to think about who now can see social media. Kids. Young kids can see
Yeah,
social media. So
impressionable kids.
exactly. So now they're affected. Now and I took a couple classes in psychology and I actually stopped because I actually started to understand why people were as messed up as they are, right?
Yeah,
They miss crucial steps in development. Usually in child development, they miss crucial steps. And I think if social media is used incorrectly, it can block those developmental steps in children. So these children grow up, don't get these steps, and then they're not antiquated to be productive human beings in society. So, from my take, like that's how we have to do something to ensure the health of everybody that is involved in social media. And if it takes more censorship, then man, it takes some more censorship. Because I honestly feel like if you ran around and punched a lot of these people in the face that are posting this nonsense on Facebook, they
yeah,
wouldn't post it because it's so easy to sit in your house and post something negative than it
sure.
is to say something and get punched in the face.
Sure, but I mean, at the same time, we can't promote violence. You know what I mean? We can't promote retaliation like that because then
No,
there's going to be you punch somebody in the face, and if they're a real coward, they're going to come back and kill you, and then you're going to be on somebody's T-shirt.
yeah,
That isn't the way, and no censorship is the way. Again, it's above my pay grade, and I don't know how it's done. I don't believe in censorship because like this is America, man. This ain't 1957 Russia, where like they're gonna line us up against the wall with
the
machine guns.
wall.
Like, yeah, you know what I mean. I don't believe in that, but at the same time, but the thing is, like, all right, so like when we were younger, we didn't have social media, and like we got into arguments, and people called me names and said everything. I turned out just fine. Like to your point about being hypersensitive, like there's so many million and billions of us that turned out just fine because you know what, we learned conflict resolution, we learned how to deal with things. And if it took therapy years later or took this or that, that's fine. But we can't let social media degrade our ability to be adults and filter out information. Yes, if things are hurtful, sure. But you have to realize if someone meant to hurt you and you were hurt by that, that was their goal all along to do that. So they didn't do it because they're bad. well, sometimes they do it because they're bad
Because
people,
they're bad people. Yeah.
but a lot of times they just did it to get a reaction out of you. Like, and like Pop said, never let them see you sweat.
Yeah.
Like, and it's easier said than done. Trust me.
It,
Yeah,
it,
no, trust
it,
me.
it, it
No, it
is.
is. It is. It is. But it's
Yeah.
a good theory to have because it's like, no, you're right, man. Like, if you want to be upset behind the scenes, that's what therapy's for. That's what other things are for, meditation, whatever.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, oh my God, you said that to me online. It's like you said I was fat because it's like, dude,
Or
it's
body
like,
shaming or something
body
like that.
shaming. Yeah, it's like, and I get that it like there are instances where it can be hurtful, but I don't know why. Like, I don't know how we got to this over like hyper sensitive culture that we live in right now. Because there's certain things that people get upset over. I'm like, dude, really? Really?
I say
Like,
the
and trust
same
me, I'm
thing.
biracial.
Yeah.
I grew up. People said horrible. Black people said horrible things to me. White people said horrible things to me. I got it from both sides, and I came out just fine. Like, through therapy and meditation and other things. It's not like I had like iron skin. I just was, I realized like, hey, I need help, or hey, I need to figure this out. I was never the person to be like, oh my God, I'm going to go shoot up the school, or oh my God, I'm going to do this to myself. And again, mental health is a real thing. So if you're feeling those things, social media is a good thing in this situation because there are so many outlets now that you can get help.
Yeah.
Because years ago, when kids were getting bullied or whatever, they felt like there was nowhere for them to go because they didn't know who else. They didn't know who else was going through these things. Like,
Yeah.
now that there's online forums, there's groups, there's Facebook groups, there's Instagram communities of things that have happened. Why not do that rather than do something than react negatively, right? Like, why not do that? And once
Because
again,
I think
it's such a slippery slope, man.
yeah, it's a simply slope, and everybody is not built the same way. Everybody is not.
That's fair.
They don't have that thick skin and stuff like that. So
That's completely fair.
when I was going through my depression at its height, I asked my ex girlfriend. I looked to her for help, and she said I can't help you. You know what I mean? And initially,
Oh,
that hurt.
okay.
That hurt a lot. That added to it even more.
Yeah.
But it was like because my because I mean I do have this thing about me that it's like I'm going to win no matter what. Like, you're not going to beat me. I'm going to outwork you. So it was
Okay.
just like for her to say that, it hurt, and then it made me turn to say, all right, I got to get it from somewhere else in order to, you know, get out of this funk, basically.
Okay.
And so that's what I did, and it helped and it worked. But everybody's not like that. Everybody
No,
doesn't
no,
come
no.
from the era, and I also think that a part of that is because I had Pop in my life, because Pop showed me that strong male figure, and it was like Pop always told us like life was not easy,
Mm-hmm.
but he always had it together in a sense. Like, it was always one
On
day
the
after.
on the surface, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It
on
was
the
always
surface.
like one day after another. Like, you just have to continue to grind it out. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? No,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what it is, and even if because I think that Pop was mainly like trying to be around for us,
Mm-hmm.
and just whatever he had to deal with, it came second to knowing he had to be around for us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of looked at it. Like, I have to do this to be around for other people. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? To be at my best, for it to be around for other people. So
Sure.
but I don't think everybody can get to that because they don't have that help around them initially already. My ex girlfriend helped me. Pop helped me through different ways, and then talking to somebody helped.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. There's more than one way to skin a cat. You know what I mean? If you
Hmm.
don't, again, social media can be a good thing. Like I said at the beginning of this, like certain aspects of it are good. Like, now more than ever, there are outlets for you to seek help. More like there's less excuse now. That's what I should say. There's the least amount of excuses now to get the help that you need.
Yeah, but
The least amount.
I still think it's tough for people to see that, though. It's still tough sometimes for people to say, because you got it, like depression or
It's
other
everywhere though.
things,
You know what I mean? Especially now,
that
it's
yeah,
everywhere.
other things that people deal with, like because being in the military, I've been in the military for almost 15 and a half years now, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have seen the military and what it's about, and all of the things that it can put on an individual, and I've seen it break an individual.
Mm.
So it's like I see it. Like,
No,
I
no,
don't know. It's tough to explain. Like, I can see why people or see all of the hurdles in front of a person, as as I can say, like our profession is not tough, and I don't even have the toughest job in the military. Like there are jobs
Gotcha.
that are way tougher than mine, so I can't even imagine, what those guys go through. But the military is very good at making it about every individual person, especially when it comes to mental health. It's just like, you gotta sit down and you gotta talk to people. You gotta get to know the people. You gotta let people know that they're never alone. You gotta, be right there for people. You gotta be available for
Absolutely.
people whenever they need you. Like that is what you have to be about. You have to be about for the people. And once you know that that's your calling or that's your drive, you will ensure that you are good so that you can help everybody else.
Okay, I mean, again, there are people out there that want to help, and there are groups that want to help, and there are outlets for help, but that's the good side of social media. The bad side of social media is that's not entertaining.
No,
That's not
no.
like it's like
And
the news.
social media,
Nobody wants to watch the news, but everybody wants to watch TMZ because it's the news, but it's entertaining. Like you're going through these things, but instead of doing that, you just want to look at the mindless part of it rather than the helpful part of it. Like
hmm
I said, that like back in the day, like I'm sure like there were kids that were like, oh, where do I go? Who do I talk to? I don't want to talk to my parents. It's so awkward. I don't want to talk to my counselor, my school counselor. It's very awkward. 20 that was 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Now it's not like that. All you need to do is go on social media. It's very discreet, or go on the internet. It's very discreet,
yeah.
and receive the help. And there's literally a million different ways to do it. But see, that's not entertaining. That's not the easiest thing to get. Like it's easier just to go online and read about somebody else's problems that drag you deeper into your depression
Yeah, because you
than
see,
to go find
what
exactly.
other
Yeah,
people are going through, and then like
yeah.
you see, what also hurts too is
It's
like
like
you
misery
see,
loves company, is what I should say.
yeah, and then you see people post nothing but yeah, how could just like things are going correct, I guess things are going right, like all these pictures of things are
Exactly.
going right, they show no downs, and then that can make a person feel like, oh, I'm so
They-
far away from that, and then it hurts them, as well.
it
Um,
makes them feel worse.
yeah,
Just like,
so
and just especially with like women and body issues and men and body issues, like we
yeah,
see, and it just like it can hurt someone's mental health, like it can hurt the mental health of an emotional health of a relationship based upon the images that you see, rather than going online and being like, hey, maybe we should get couples counseling. You see Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, he's eating a plate of chicken wings off her ass and by the pool, and it's like couple goals, and you're like, oh man, yeah, she's a model and he's like a Grammy Award winning singer. How come I can't have that life? And it's like, bro, they probably fight way more or way less because they probably don't even see each other because
yeah,
he's got a schedule, she's got a schedule. That's not a real relationship.
yeah.
Like that's a relationship, but that's their reality. That's not your reality. So by them writing couple goals on there, they're actually doing a disservice. No, that's not couple goals, that's their
Goals,
couple
yeah.
goals. Like, but see, now everyone's like, oh, that's a mood, that's a goal. Like, no, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
that's like I've
That's
never
their goal. Like,
yeah,
never make
I
their
never want
goal
to do
your
that.
goal.
Like I
What's
never
good for
want
the
to.
goose isn't good for the gander.
Yeah, you always say that, and I like that. Like I don't ever want to eat fried chicken off of my wife's butt because for one, I don't eat fried chicken, and two, I'm not doing that.
You don't eat. I like fried chicken.
I don't eat fried food.
Yeah. Hey, listen. I need to. Listen.
No, I mean that's and again, like because I remember I told somebody.
I treat myself every once in a while.
Yeah, no, and that's
Yeah.
fine. Like, and I remember I told somebody. They asked me, "Do I like?" They asked me, they asked me, "Do I like soul food?" I said, "Yeah, I like
Huh?
macaroni, cheese, greens, stuff
Yeah,
like
well,
that."
yeah.
But and I said I don't eat fried food though, and they said, "Oh, you're uncultured," and I said, "What?" Because I
Hmm.
don't eat fried food.
Now wait, can I ask you a question? Who? I don't want to sound racist at all. Not even. I'm not. I don't want to sound racist. Anybody who says I'm not, this isn't a racist statement is
Yeah,
usually followed by a racist statement. I don't want to make it. I don't want to make it about color. That's what I should
yeah.
say. I don't. But
No, it's a black
what?
person.
That's hey. No. They're uncultured.
Yeah, and
No,
that's and I
you're
was,
uncultured.
yeah,
If
and
we're
I was
saying
just
that, like
like,
a black man should never say that to another black man.
I was just like,
Like I
all
don't
right,
like. Okay, yeah. Does that make me? Because I don't like.
because I don't
Like
eat fried food.
because I don't like boxed wine. Does that make me not? Oh, you're not cultured. If a white person said that to me, like, does that make me not cultured, or like
Yeah,
does that make me? Come on, like again, we need to break away from that, and I don't think.
you need to stop
Wait,
judging people. You need to
I
stop
I
judging people.
I agree, and again, like I literally have been judged my entire life from white people and black people just the same, and the
Yeah,
easiest way for me to navigate it is I held on to the people that I never had those issues with. I can't tell you how many times I lost friends because of things that they said. White and black people, things that they said that were racist. Especially when I was younger, I was like, damn, I never knew that you thought like that, man. Well, now I got to turn my back. Now I got to turn my back because you disrespected me as a human being and as a man. So I can't do that. And I'm not going to go down to your level and we're going to have it out. Like, I'm just going to do the adult thing and take the high ground and the good Christian thing and walk away. Or I'm not going to engage you because it's not going to go anywhere constructive. So, but going back to what you just said about the the fried food thing, like, well, first of all, if my gastroenterologist is listening, Dr. Tangora, I don't eat every once in a blue moon, please, sir, please. But the reality of the situation is that's another judgment that's leveled, and it's sad. It's interesting that another black person said that to you. Because if it's somebody white, it'd almost be like roll eyes, like, oh, of course, like that's what he thinks. But see, that's almost like you ain't black. You ain't black because you don't eat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, dude, I'm not black because I don't eat fried food.
Yeah,
like
that's what that's like. And I'm just like, all right.
Yeah, all right.
And for me, I hope this is a lesson too. Like, and it's on a very small scale. Like knowing your self worth. Like I didn't feed into that. You know what I'm saying? Like I know I know that's not me, so I don't care what you say. You can say anything and not bother me because because I know who I am. So one of the things that I do want to promote to kind of help and stop the social media, to make us better when we're dealing with social media is first of all we got to know our worth. You know what I mean? Before we go into social media, we got to all know.
You mean as individuals, Todd?
Yeah, as individuals.
Okay.
Because I think if you know your worth, when you go on social media and you see these things, it won't affect you. You know what I mean? Like if you're a person that is in your eyes overweight and you need to work on it, that's fine. Still know you are a human being. Like you still know that you are loved. Still know that in whatever state and condition that you are in, people love you, people respect you. So that if you go online and you see something that might be like body image shaming, don't even worry about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't even feed into that because you're better than that. Whoever you are, you're better than that. If you go online and you see something about, Donald Trump is saying something about African Americans or some divisiveness, just know, like, try to ignore that as much as possible because you got to understand that you're better than that. You got to understand that if you feed into that negativity, then now you're on that level with him. Now you're down there in a sandbox with him. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You got to be above that. You always got to take a step back. And I know it's hard living in the moment when you read something or you see something, your emotions spike and you want to immediately attack that. You got to take that second, man. You got to really be conscious of, what you're doing. And like I said, know your self-worth, know who you are, know that people love you, whoever you are, wherever you are. And you kind of have to attack it like that so that you're not so much affected by social media, and then you can go on social media and enjoy social media like some people do. Because I don't think everybody enjoys social media. They just have to get on it, I think. But
yeah, it's a necessary evil at this point.
Yeah,
in
but
many
you want
ways.
to but you want to be able to get on it and enjoy it. Look at the photos, kind of just admire them from afar. Those types of things. But I think you've got to really know your self worth before you roll over in the morning and open up your apps and look in them. You're like, know that you are good enough the way that you are. Like if there's a journey, whether it's a weight loss, weight gain, whether it's mental, like that's your journey that you're going to take, and I'm sure you're going to complete it. But know that beforehand before you go on.
Yeah, I do, and I also think like you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Meaning, if you're really struggling with certain things, especially things that you feel like social media could be a detriment to your journey, you need to have the strength to walk away from it. Like when I was going through a real tough time, I deactivated my Instagram for like a year, and I was only supposed to be for a few months, and then it was so freeing that I was almost a year, and I finally was like, wait, like I haven't Instagram in like a year, like I might as well just go back on, not because I wanted to. I was like, you know what, I just want to see what's going on. Like there's certain pages I followed, like certain like things that I wanted to keep up with. I was like, man, like I really haven't seen what's going on with this artist or this brewery that I wanted to see. I've probably been missing out on some stuff. It was such a freeing feeling because I was like, it helped my life and enriched my life because it reminded me that none of this is real. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen, people that have like tens of thousands of followers and seen him in real life, mostly women, ran into them in real life. And it's almost like I remember when I was watching a documentary about Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis, and Lennox Lewis said when he finally got to Memphis at their venue, and he looked across the way and he saw Mike Tyson like pacing around on the other side of the guards. He was like, "This is the first time I physically stood in the ring with him. I've only seen videos of him in the ring, pictures of him in the ring. I physically stood there." I said, "You know what? He don't seem so bad. Like I could beat this guy. Like he doesn't seem like this mythical figure that in the boxing ring that he was in real life." And that's the same thing with social media. It's like the image that Mike Tyson had portrayed, or the image that Lennox had in his head of him, was a preconceived notion. So when you saw him in reality, he's like, nah, he's a normal person. He's not this, not King Kong, he's not Godzilla. Like I could take him.
Yeah.
Same thing when you see these people, you're like, you know what, you seem like a regular woman, man. Like like you're not so high and mighty, or like you see like a guy like riding around in a Lamborghini Ferrari. You see him, you're like, yeah, you seem like a regular dude, man. Like, but it's the image.
Yeah.
It's the image that kind of makes them larger than life, 10 feet tall when they're really 5'5".
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's, again, if you feel like those things affect you visually, it affects you, you should walk away for a little while. And it's the feeling of unplugging from that matrix. That might be the key, the first step, because the first step is always hardest, right? It's
Yep.
always hardest. It is always hardest, being it, putting your guard down, or like admitting certain things, or trying something new for the first time that could help you, but it could hurt at first. Like that could be the first step. Unplugging from social media, maybe forever, maybe for a week, maybe for a day. Take a break.
Yeah.
Take a break. And I think it worked for me. And again, what's good for the goose ain't good for the gander all the time. But maybe to those people out there that you guys listen to this podcast, like there's always somebody that wants to help you.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know it yet, we live in a world that it's literally at your fingertips. You just got to make that first step. We have that advantage as
Yeah.
people living in this country, in this world. It's so easy to get help. There's more people that want to help you that want to hurt you. It's just that the people that want to help you are not as visible as the people that want to hurt you sometimes. And if you're in a dark hole for whatever reason, it can be such a daunting task to try to climb that mountain. But luckily, there are options out there for you. And if you have to walk away from social media, that might be what it takes.
Yeah.
That might be what it takes. Not maybe not everybody.
Yeah. So just to recap on this podcast, this episode, which is the first, the health is wealth, wealth is health. Basically, we talked about social media, right? We talked about social media and its negative connotations on how it really affects people. We talked about Facebook. We talked about Instagram. We even mentioned Twitter. We talked about how we had political figures and they use social media as a weapon, and how do we navigate that? I even talked about being an African American in the military right now. We talked about a lot of things, but the overwhelming thing that we wanted to, I think, both get across to everybody is that there's always help for you out there. If you're struggling mentally, there are, like Charles said, there's more people out there willing to help you than there are people willing to be that negative anchor in your life. You know what I mean? It all and he also brought up the fact that on social media, it's just another outlet for you to get that help, because I know that it's tough or hard to just go to people and say, hey, I need help, or I need to talk, or I need to do this. On social media, you can do it really discreetly. You can DM people, you can send emails to people. The modern age makes it really, really easy.
Yeah.
You can even contact myself. I'll talk to you. You know what I mean? Like, I never want people to feel like they're alone, because in this world of, I don't even know how many billions of people, like, you should never feel alone. There's always
Hmm.
somebody that's willing to talk to you, that's willing to hear your story, that's willing to help coach or mentor you through the things that you're dealing with, especially the social media things that we're really touching on today, because social media can really be a beast at times. So, Charles, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, definitely. Mental health is a real thing. I strongly advise you to take the first step towards mental health, being unplugging, therapy, meditation, whatever. I strongly advise that the first step is always the hardest, but it's all all easier after that. You just got to make the first step. It was hard for me. I was, if you're listening, I was in your shoes. It took me years of procrastination and denial to have to take that first step, and failure to take that first step. But once I did, I was eternally grateful that I had the internal fortitude to take it. And you'll feel better, and it's not an overnight thing. It's not, Rome wasn't built in a day and wasn't built in a year. But if you're working on yourself every day, you might get to the point where you don't need social media anymore, and you might be able to come back to social media. But if you never do, just realize that it's not real. Social media is like Monopoly money. It's entertaining, but it's not real. Until you make it real in your mind, it's none of it's real.
Yeah.
It's not real. That's Social media is not real. The person is real. The social media is not real.
Yeah, unless somebody's running like a business through it. If they're trying to sell you lotions and hand soaps, then
No. We're
that's all right.
talking we're talking about like how it negatively affects
Yeah,
society. Yeah, like nah. If you're out here selling soap, holler at your boy.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I mean, if it's all natural, you know what I mean. Holler at
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. So as you can see, with we got the banner down here. If like I said, if you need to talk about anything, you can definitely reach us through info@secondandone.com. This is our Facebook and our Instagram as well. If you have any comments or any things that you want us to talk about, please let us know, and we will talk about them. Thank you for tuning in to our first show, and we hope to continue to do shows more like these in the future. You guys have a great night.